No, Radu! It is forbidden to kill your master! I have no master.
Hello, fellow fans! Welcome back to Marvelous Videos, where we meet all your nerdy needs. Today, we're looking into the life and history of one of the most powerful and terrifying vampires to ever exist, Radu Vladislas. If you're a true fan of vampire lore, you might be familiar with the Subspecies franchise, which is completely plagued by Radu. But who is this mysterious vampire, and why is he so powerful? Is there any way to destroy him? Let's dive right in and find out the origin and backstory of Radu Vladislas. Before we get too deep into things though, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to the channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. The birth of Radu Vladislas. Full Moon Studios and Castle Film Studios came together in 1991 to produce a direct-to-home film series called Subspecies that followed the exploits of a vampire named Radu Vladislas. Starring Anders Hove as the undead Radu, the movie was shot completely in Romania. There are a total of 6 films in the franchise, including a spin-off, and they were all directed by Ted Nicolau. Eternity Comics also contributed to the franchise by introducing a comic book series that acted as a prequel to the films. In the castle of Cronescu, Queen Yvonne is attacked by a fiery red demon witch who absorbs her life force and kills her. She takes on the form of the dead queen and approaches her husband, Vampire King Vladislas. After seducing him in the guise of his true love and making love to him, she shows her true image to him and flies away. Months later, she reappears to show him their son, Radu Vladislas, who is meant to inherit the throne as the king's firstborn. The king narrates this story to his second son, Stefan, telling him that he's the chosen heir to the throne and must kill Radu in order to rule in peace. Stefan, who is a vampire as well, is reminded by his father that he must always remember that a prince's duty is to protect and must not let his thirst for blood take over. Meanwhile, Radu, who is camping with an army of Turks, drinks blood from the neck of an unwilling woman. He plucks his own fingers from his hand one by one and throws them onto the ground, and they begin growing into huge monstrous creatures which then proceed to attack and kill the woman. His soldiers capture a traveling old man and his daughter Maria. The old man offers to steal the Bloodstone, a relic that oozes the blood of saints from the holy city, in exchange for his and his daughter's lives. Stefan sneaks into the camp and overhears the merchant's plea. When Radu orders his commander to kill the old man, Stefan bursts in and sets fire to the camp. Unfortunately, it's too late for the old man, but he rescues Maria and they flee. Radu saves the tentacled creatures which shrink back into his fingers once he attaches them to his palm. Radu sends his men after Stefan, who gives his horse to Maria so she can warn the villagers and reach the castle of Cronescu, while Stefan turns back to fight the men. Meanwhile, Radu prepares for battle. His ride is Brimstone, a gigantic dark-colored unicorn that many believe to be Satan's steed. There are also rumors that Brimstone was sired by Radu and had the same thirst for human blood that he did. As Radu rides to seize the castle, the villagers of Cronescu seek refuge inside the fortress. Stefan faces Radu's men alone as their blood assaults his senses and he screams his half-brother's name in anger. Radu, who can hear the screams thanks to his vampiric senses, is amused and asks his commander to send enough men to keep Stefan occupied. King Vladislas realizes that his people are in no shape to face Radu as they're all exhausted from feeding their blood to the king, the prince, and their nocturnal court of vampires. So he commands his army of the undead to rise. As the armies meet, Radu realizes that only he can beat Stefan, but decides to weaken him by disconnecting his fingers, which grow into tailed demons. Radu feeds on his commander in preparation to face his little brother. As Stefan is approached by the demonic creatures, he wonders if they can be truly killed as they are his brother's motherless children. They are neither alive nor dead, so he's doubtful about their mortality. He rides away from them, knowing that fighting them would only waste his time. As Radu sees Stefan approaching, he commands Brimstone to take care of his steed, and Brimstone attacks. As Stefan falls down, Radu reminds him that they are both soulless creatures who thirst for blood, and that if they join forces, nothing would be able to stop them. Radu then takes on the form of Maria, which distracts Stefan, but he attacks him nonetheless. As Stefan grabs him in a chokehold, Radu yells for Brimstone. Stefan turns around with Radu in his arms and impales him on Brimstone's horn. He drives his sword through Radu as he tells him that they're not so different. Stefan returns to the castle where the king learns that his people are tired of feeding their blood to the nocturnal court. Maria tells him about the Bloodstone and the king considers bringing it to satiate his thirst without hurting his people. While this is going on, Radu's finger monsters take him to the demon brood who begin a rite of resurrection for Radu. The rite, which is completed with a virgin woman's teardrop, awakens Radu, and his mother commands him to kill Stefan and seize the Bloodstone and the throne of Cronescu, as that is the goal of his existence. Stefan and Maria head to the holy city of the Vatican to bring back the Bloodstone. Maria realizes that Stefan is not like Radu, and he has feelings of compassion, love, and shame that Radu lacks. Stefan tells her that he has vowed never to drink human blood again and confesses his love to her, but soon a demonic presence nearby alerts his senses. Radu's mother attacks Stefan, and he decides that running away is the better option, as it's nighttime and he's at a disadvantage with Maria. As Stefan rides away with her, Radu follows. Cursed not to tread hallowed ground, Stefan waits outside as Maria breaks into the Vatican to steal the Bloodstone. Radu unleashes his fingers on Stefan, and when Maria returns, she sees Stefan embroiled in a battle with the creatures. Radu asks Maria to hand over the Bloodstone. She refuses, and Radu commands his monsters to attack her. As the monsters attack Maria, Stefan is unable to do anything. His fight has drained him of energy, and he watches on as the monsters torture his true love. Stefan reaches over to the Bloodstone and drinks the blood dripping out of it and is immediately rejuvenated. Knowing that he can no longer save Maria, he attacks Radu with the giant cross hanging outside the Vatican. Though the cross burns him, he's aware that the pain will be multifold to his evil brother. He hits Radu with the cross, leaves it on his body, and then beheads him. With her last breath, Maria says goodbye to Stefan, and Stefan returns with Maria's dead body and the Bloodstone. Meanwhile, Radu's mother picks up her son's severed head, which calls out for her, implying that we haven't seen the last of Radu yet. Can Stefan kill Radu? Years later, Radu returns to King Vladislas, demanding his birthright of using the Bloodstone. King Vladislas drops a cage on him and tells him that no one as evil as Radu can be given access to something as powerful as the Bloodstone. Radu unleashes his finger monsters and they release him from the cage. He then stabs his father to death. His monsters fetch him the Bloodstone and he drinks from it. The fortress offers lodging to scholars studying local folklore, and 3 women, Mara, Michelle, and Lillian, who are studying for their PhDs, arrive to stay there. The caretaker, Karl, informs them that soon the yearly festival will take place, which commemorates the night the villagers were saved from the Turks by vampires. The women take pictures of Castle Vladislas and return to their rooms, wondering why there are not many historical records about it. They're visited by Stefan, who introduces himself as a zoologist who's researching nocturnal animals. In the evening, Radu ventures out of the castle and spies on the women who had accidentally fallen asleep on the outskirts of the village. As they rush home, Radu follows them. They come across Stefan, and he escorts them safely back to the fortress and visits the castle. There, he finds the dead body of his father, and Radu mocks him for crying and calls him a fool. Stefan rushes back to the fortress and informs Karl that the king is dead. Radu follows him back to the castle and is tempted by the blood of Lillian, who has an open wound on her arm. He begins to feed, but Stefan finds out that he's in the fortress and chases him away. As dawn approaches, Stefan begins to search for the Bloodstone. He's weakened by having no blood, and Radu, knowing that he's in no shape to fight, taunts him with the Bloodstone. Radu tells him that he intends to take the 3 women as his consorts and reminds him that he's too far away from his crypt to make it in time before sunrise. Karl brings Stefan's coffin just as the sun begins to rise and takes him back to the fortress in his coffin. Celebration begins for the Festival of the Undead, and Mara attends with Michelle as Lillian has taken ill. Michelle decides to head back to check on Lillian, and Radu attacks and feeds off of Mara. He kidnaps her and chains her up in the castle. By the time Michelle reaches the fortress, Radu is back feeding from Lillian, and he leaves when she sees him. Comes clean to Michelle and narrates their backstory. He asks Michelle to leave with her friends. Unfortunately, Lillian has died and Mara is nowhere to be seen. Stefan asks Michelle and Karl to wait in a church while he searches for Radu's crypt so that in the morning, while he sleeps, they can attack and kill him. At nightfall, Lillian rises as a vampire and lures Michelle out. She is kidnapped and chained in the castle with Mara. Stefan, while searching for Mara, is also caught and chained. Radu sires Mara too is a vampire and taunts Stefan with Michelle as he tells him that his castle, his Bloodstone, and the women he had set his eyes on now all belong to Radu. Thankfully, Karl interrupts Radu just as he bites Michelle and shoots the new vampires with rosary beads. Karl frees Stefan and he defeats Radu in a fight and beheads him. He searches the castle and finds the Bloodstone. Michelle begs Stefan to bite her as she doesn't want to be sired by Radu, and he obliges. The movie ends with Radu flashing a smile at us. The return of Radu. The finger monsters remove the stake from Radu's body and reattach his head. Bloodstone Subspecies 2 is set right after the last one ended, and we see Radu back in shape to claim the Bloodstone once again. This man, or vampire to be exact, doesn't know when to give up. He heads up to see Stefan resting in his coffin with the Bloodstone in his hand. He drives a wooden stake into his heart and kills him. He moves to the adjoining coffin to kill Michelle, but the sun rays entering the room deter him, and he seeks refuge in his coffin. Michelle wakes up at night and takes the Bloodstone from Stefan's coffin and gets on the first train she can find. She ends up in Bucharest and calls her sister Becky to come to her as she's in dire need of help. Radu meets his mother, who's cross with him, and asks him to leave since he was banished from there, but she relents when Radu offers his father's blood and the news of King Vladislas and Stefan's death. His mother asks for the Bloodstone, but Radu confesses that Michelle left with it. She demands that he immediately burn Stefan and his father's bodies in a fire of black thorns. Radu agrees and leaves. Meanwhile, Michelle is mistakenly confirmed to be dead in the hotel she's staying in, and while transporting her body, she wakes up and runs away. When Becky arrives, she's told what happened, and with Lieutenant Marin and U.S. Embassy agent Mel Thompson, she starts looking for her sister. She inquires about the Bloodstone she found in Michelle's bag with Professor Popescu, who takes Becky and Mel Thompson to Castle Vladislas. Radu rebukes the three of them for trespassing, and they leave. Back at the hotel, Becky finds Michelle and asks her about the Bloodstone. Michelle takes the Bloodstone and leaves without offering any explanation. Radu follows her and tells her that if she doesn't accept him as her master, he'll torture her for all eternity. Before she can answer, he takes the Bloodstone and leaves. Radu offers the Bloodstone to his mother, who tells him to destroy Michelle before she destroys him. Radu, the cruel sadist that he is, tells her that his love is so sublime that he intends to see her suffer for all eternity. He then goes to Becky's room, who has by now found out about the importance of the Bloodstone and tries to bite her, but the phone rings, waking Becky up, and Radu leaves without alerting her. Michelle, who has succumbed to her hunger, calls Becky for help, but when she arrives to help her, Radu kidnaps Michelle right in front of her. Becky tells Mel that she suspects that Michelle is a vampire, but Mel leaves, rebuking her theory as pure fairy tale. Becky convinces the professor to help her, and they head to Radu's crypt with weapons where he's asleep with Michelle. Right as the professor is about to drive a stake through Radu's heart, a dagger attacks him. Who could that dagger belong to, you might be wondering? Well, it's none other than Mommy Dearest, here to save her darling son. Radu wakes up, and together they tie up Becky. When Michelle wakes up, Radu invites her to feed from Becky, but Michelle isn't ready to give up on her humanity just yet and sets Radu's mother on fire. She grabs her dagger and attacks Radu repeatedly. With both mother and son incapacitated, Becky and Michelle leave the crypt, but it's already dawn, so Michelle goes back inside while Becky promises to wait outside until dark. As she goes inside, Radu's mother jumps on her and bites her. Michelle's journey with Radu. There's nothing more pure or stronger in this world than a mother's love, or so they say. Radu's mother is no exception to this saying as she revives her undead son once more, using the magical dagger that Michelle had used to kill him, as well as Michelle's blood. The trio return to Count Vladislas. Michelle, knowing that there is no use fighting Radu as he's just way too powerful, agrees to obey him, but only if he teaches her everything he knows about being a vampire. Radu agrees and immediately begins to teach her how to hunt. Becky tells Mel everything she saw, and he agrees to help her. With the help of a former operative from the CIA, Mel and Becky head to the Castle Vladislas armed with silver bullets. Radu's mother kills the former CIA operative, imprisons Mel, and orders Radu to finish off Michelle. But Radu is in love, and like everyone who's head over heels, he's a bit stupid and decides to disobey his mother. To show his loyalty to his new love, he beheads his mother, but he isn't so in love that he forgets his cruelty. He asks her to be forever loyal and devoted to him if she wishes to see Becky alive. Using Becky's gun full of silver bullets, they threaten Radu, gain a hold of the Bloodstone, and run away from the castle with Mel. Radu follows them, but daylight is approaching and they're all tired from the night's events. Mel helps Michelle get into a body bag to save her from sunlight. This slows them down and helps Radu catch up. Becky tosses the Bloodstone over the castle wall. Radu lunges to get a hold of it, but unfortunately the sun has completely risen and sets him ablaze. He falls from the castle onto a dead tree and is impaled. Drops of his blood that are gathering on the land transform into new and monstrous creatures. Can Michelle finally end the story of Radu? If you think getting burnt by the sun and being impaled by a tree would surely be Radu's end, you're unfortunately mistaken. He's very much alive, although badly wounded and in need of a good morning's rest. Meanwhile, Becky, Mel, and Michelle are heading back when they meet with a car accident. Michelle just can't catch a break, can she? She just wanted to have a chill trip with her friends and ended up embroiled in a vampire horror story. Unfortunately, Michelle is the only survivor of the car accident. She's rescued by a woman called Anna. Anna observes observes Michelle's reaction to sunlight and takes her to her professor, Dr. Nicolescu. Dr. Nicolescu correctly identifies her as a vampire and tells her that he can cure her. But he's not doing it because of the Hippocratic Oath, he has his own agenda behind his actions. Dr. Nicolescu is a vampire as well, and he had managed nearly all of the side effects of vampirism with science, except for the need for human blood. If he gets the bloodstone, he'll no longer need to fight the thirst, so basically, he needs Michelle to go get it for him. Meanwhile, Radu heals and heads to Bucharest to claim the wealth of his fledgling, whose name is Ash. Ash has acquired the crypt of Vladislas and the enchanted sword of Laertes, a legendary vampire slayer. Radu asks Ash to help him find Michelle. They find her with Dr. Nicolescu, and Radu asks him to give Michelle in exchange for 3 drops of blood from the bloodstone. Nicolescu agrees and invites him in. Don't worry though, Dr. Nicolescu isn't a turncoat and was only trying to get close to Radu to try and stake him. He locks Radu in, but since Michelle is his fledgling, he still has power over her, which helps him command her to release him. Michelle and Radu head to the crypt of Vladislas as dawn is approaching. Serena, Ash's fledgling, is tired of answering to another vampire and decides to double-cross her. She gives Anna a key to the crypt of Vladislas and gives her instructions on how to kill the old vampire. Anna and Dr. Nicolescu head to the crypt, but Radu, perhaps a light sleeper by now, wakes up. He kills the good doctor and is about to kill Anna as well, but Michelle intervenes and stabs him. Anna, seizing the right opportunity, beheads him. Together, they burn his body, and perhaps this will finally end the reign of terror of Radu Vladislas. As Anna heads out with the bloodstone, Ash and Serena attack her. She begins screaming, which a caretaker overhears and opens the door of the crypt. The sun has fully risen by now, and as soon as the door opens, sunlight spills in and Ash and Serena escape, seeking shelter from the sun. Anna helps Michelle get out of the crypt in a coffin, and they leave the head of Radu on a pike outside under the sun. The Fate of Radu. Released in 2023, Subspecies 5, Blood Rise gives an alternate beginning to the saga of Radu. He was born as a vampire to a woman named Circe. On the night of his birth, Knights of the Dragon, crusaders against vampires, attack his mother, take him, and clip his ears and fingers. Circe also had a dagger that could kill vampires that the Knights of the Dragon stole. Using holy potions, they hide Radu's vampiric features, raise him, and train him to kill the enemies of the church. As an adult, he too becomes a crusader in the Knights of the Dragon and is sent on a mission with a monk named Marius to the castle of Prince Vladislas. The monks of the Knights of the Dragon give him the enchanted sword of Laertes. In this castle, he finds out that he was a stolen child and his father is actually Prince Vladislas. He finds a seemingly innocent woman named Helena and her baby Stefan. Helena tells him that the prince took her as a consort against her wishes and raped her. As a result, she gave birth to Stefan. Helena reveals that she's a vampire and drinks from the bloodstone. Radu suspects that Helena turned him into a vampire, but Circe, his mother and the wife of Vladislas, tells him that he was born a vampire. Vladislas kidnaps Helena and Stefan and takes Radu's enchanted sword with him. As he is still curious about his origins, Circe offers to help him learn about his lineage and teach him everything she knows. From his mother, he learns sorcery, demon summoning, and many of the dark arts. But when he tries to steal from her, Circe is displeased and banishes him. Alone and wanting companionship, Radu wanders around until he meets 2 young musicians named Ariel and Ash. Ariel and Ash are sisters, and Radu turns both of them into vampires. He asks them to play for him, and he teaches them how to hunt. While living in a castle with them, one night, a Knight of the Dragon attacks them. Diana, who's armed with Circe's dagger, tries to kill Radu, but Radu tries to dissuade her, telling her that she too is a descendant of monsters and was abducted into the Knights of the Dragon. When she refuses to listen, he bites her and turns her into a vampire. Ash and Ariel, using Diana's weapons, drive Radu out of the castle. Helena has her own adventure, where she impales Vladislas and raises Stefan into a kind young man. After Stefan leaves to travel the world, she finds Ariel and Ash and takes them under her wing. They take over a catacomb and hunt out of the casino that was built over it. 300 years later, Radu meets Ash and Ariel and they tell him about Helena. Radu reconnects with Helena and gives her complete control over his musician fledglings, but Ash and Ariel have had enough of serving Helena. Helena tries to bribe them, but it's of no use as they've already made up their minds. After a while, Radu confesses that he has nothing but hatred towards Helena, and she confirms that she too hates him. They both attack each other, and Radu breaks her neck. With her last breath, she curses him, promising to return in her next life to haunt him. While the 2 vampires fight with each other, Ash steals the bloodstone, which was with Helena, and asks Ariel to leave with her. But Ariel has started to fall in love with Radu, which begs the question of whether love isn't just blind, but also incredibly stupid. But before they can leave the catacombs, Diana arrives. She kills Ariel and tells Radu that he having to suffer eternity without his lover is punishment enough, I guess. As the movie ends, the narrator wonders if Helena's curse came true, as Helena resembled Michelle a lot, and she was the one who brought Radu's end. Marvelous verdict! This was the incredible saga of Subspecies, as well as the life and death of Radu Vladislas. We're glad that the creepy yet powerful monster finally met his end. Which backstory for Radu do you prefer, the 2023 movie plotline or the original comics? For us, the comics win in a landslide, but let us know what you think and why you think it in the comments down below. If you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already, but otherwise, see you soon with yet another marvelous video. Hasta la vista, baby.
Come to fulfill my destiny.